my favorite. Of course, I've always got a sweet tooth, so naturally this one's going to be my favorite. With the fresh fruit Napoleon, like I said, I've got a list of blueberries and strawberries, the kiwi, the grapes, the raspberries, the blackberries, or the black raspberries. But you can use other things, different types of fruit, peaches, apples, bananas, raisins, currants, all of that. Just whatever your preference is, or you can just, mix them all up that way. Tonight, I'm going to be using the strawberry and blueberry. Those go really well together. But also the strawberry banana goes really well with this dish as well. Okay. As before, you do want to make sure and let your pastry thaw out. But you don't want to have it to where you set it out in room temperature and let it get too soft, then it'll stick on you and it's harder to work with. By putting it in the refrigerator for at least 20 minutes, give it time to soften up, but it's still firm enough for you to work with it. And you'll find it's a lot easier and a lot less mess doing it that way. Now you can use a little knife or something, but I found a pizza cutter works best for this. And with a lot of these pastry sheets, they come already pre-folded into thirds. So I'll go ahead and just use that to advantage. Cut straight down the seam there. And then just kind of judge it. I can make a little tic-tac-toe board there. Now if you want to get fancy and do little triangles or get a cookie cutter and cut out different shapes, that'll work just as well with this. Okay. I'm going to take your egg wash again and cover the top. If I sound a little nasally tonight, I got that sinus infection. At least I haven't lost my voice this time. I did last time. Okay. Now, for the sugar, you want to look for a large crystallized type sugar, which I'm using sugar in the raw for this, which comes in an unmistakable brown package. But they have other large crystal sugars that you can use. Feel free to experiment, but this one works just as well. And just lightly sprinkle that over the top. Okay. You'll place them out here. Don't worry if they're close to each other, because when these things rise, they actually draw in a little bit. So you can actually have these touching together and they won't cook together.
Is that pastry, the puff pastry, is it in the frozen section?
Yes, it is in the frozen section. This is a Pepperidge Farm style puff pastry that I'm using here. Okay. Just lay it out as so. And once again, cook it off at 400 degrees, or roughly 13 to 15 minutes. When it comes out, we'll have something that looks like this. Switch gloves here right quick. Now you do want to make sure and let these cool down before you start adding the ingredients to it, because the cream we're getting ready to make for this, if you put it on while it's hot, it's just going to melt over and it's going to just start running all over the side. So you make sure and let these cool down and break them apart like so. They'll usually just pull right apart while they're still hot. So we'll set that to the side for a second. You're going to take some whipping cream and whip it up, which, considering how long that takes, I went ahead and pre-whipped up some here. Then all we're going to need, you take your vanilla pudding, but you want to make sure and make that ahead of time. Give it at least 45 minutes, let it cool down and thicken up really good to get the right consistency for this.
Do you use a pre-cooked, a cooked pudding or an instant?
You could use either one. This one is an instant. That will definitely save you a lot of time. And if you want to change the flavor of this, say where I'm working, if I want to make a strawberry one and then add bananas and blueberries as my fruit to it, you can do that as well. So you just, once again, experiment with the flavors there. Okay. Pull this out. And if you decide to use an apple one, make you a little bit of cinnamon sugar to sprinkle over the top instead of a confectionate sugar or instead of the natural sugar, and that really makes it stand out too. Okay. I'm just going to fold that all in. And there we go. Okay. Take a little bit of vanilla. Now you notice a lot of times when they say a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of this, if you use about not quite half of the cap, that gives you about the right amount on that. Most people that use that, they don't even bother dirtying up a teaspoon, just use the cap there. Okay. Now once you have this whipped together, I would actually recommend that you put it back in the refrigerator for about another 15 minutes, because while you're working with it, it does heat up a little bit and it thins down a little bit, so you want to kind of let it thicken up just a little bit. So we're going to pretend that we actually did that. Okay. Got a big spoon here. A large tablespoonful right there in the center. Now, if you're using blueberries or any small round fruit, go ahead and put them on first. By putting them on, stick them into the cream. That'll keep them from rolling out on you when you're trying to eat it. And another thing that you could do with this, if you wanted to, not to put the top on it, just do a whole sheet of this without cutting it, and then you pull it apart and have the two sections, put the cream over the entire base of it, and then line the fruit in rows that way. It's real pretty, great decorative look that way too. But for the finger foods and stuff, this will work better. Okay. You want to cut your strawberries about 1/4 of an inch thick. Just lay them out there on top. Like so. Now when you put that on top, you can sprinkle a little bit of confectioner sugar over top of it. Or if you want to get real fancy, you can actually, sometimes you can find the pre-made coulis or coulis, or you can make your own. Just puree up some of the, whichever fruit you're using. Like here we're using strawberry. Just puree a little bit of that up, and then just drizzle it over top. It makes it real colorful, but it also adds a little bit to the flavor as well. And if you use them once again with the apples, put a little bit of cinnamon sugar, you can take a little bit of the caramel and drizzle it over top of that. And so those, both of these would be really good for the holidays coming up. Alrighty, pull these off. And with these, after you make them, you can keep them in the refrigerator overnight if you want to. So you can make these a day ahead, and they'll work just as well that way. And with the Lorraine Bites, if you want to pre-make these and put them back in the refrigerator, you can keep them up to 3 days like that and then reheat them up at 200 degrees. Just wrap them in aluminum foil when you do. Or you can actually freeze them and keep them up to about a month. And then, like I said, reheat them the same way, but let them thaw out before you do reheat them. Now with these, of course, you want to make those pretty much fresh. You can serve these hot or cold, but if you do serve them cold, make sure they're still done the day of, because if you let these sit overnight, it's going to get mushy in the refrigerator. All right, we'll go ahead and set these out for you then.